Welcome and thank you for tuning in. We're continuing our healing workshop today, addressing social anxiety, and we're going to do a treatment today that operates on normalizing the images in our mind. That is the relationship between the image of yourself and the image of others. What is so critical for us to understand is that many of the situations that we consider to be circumstantial is really imaginal. And there is where our interventions lie. We can begin to operate with imaginal exposure, changing our inner relationships, the relationships between the image of ourselves and the image of others. And of course, this is the key. It is probably one of the most important revelations that will inform not only your recovery from irrational anxiety and irrational fear, but will provide for the ongoing process of your maturation, where you arrive at a very non-judgmental perspective, a highly inclusive way of looking at life, and keeping the door open to your own evolving, your own process of maturation, which, by the way, never stops, ever, including the hour of our death. We need to be considering relaxing and, again, investigating, keeping our mind wide open. Just the way we need to live life is the way we need to carry on through life. So we do want to be engaged with life, but we want to have that psychological distance that is so golden, which the mystics have all spoken about, a form of dispassion, a form of psychological distance on what is occurring. How do the scriptures say it, or some spiritual statements suggest that we should be in the world but not of it? Well, that is what we're sort of pointing to. If you're too much in the world, you are possessed by the terms of existence, which is part of the game of life. However, we want to keep one foot in a perspective that is highly accepting, radically accepting, actually. It is as it is. And then, of course, we have it is as it should be. So we've talked about these two different perspectives, and it is as it is very consistent with the meditative placement of attention. It is consistent with communion. And communion is not only a spiritual event, it is also a physiological event. And as we commune with nature, we have that opportunity to eliminate obstacles that are created by our mind, created by our own emotional wounds, schemas. And of course, everyone has these emotional wounds. These emotional wounds tend to capture our attention, tend to arrest development by degree. Wisdom comes into our life, helping us to let go, include the emotional wound, transcend and move on and evolve. We are indeed interested in actualizing our lives. That's very consistent with the idea of arriving at full maturation and greater sense of realization of the human potential. So I've done quite a bit of lecturing before the practice. Let us begin with 3 deep breaths. We then will modulate to the meditative placement of attention. We will then enter imaginal exposure, and in that imaginal exposure you will change the relationship you have with the images that you have invited into your consciousness. What we want is the horizontalization of all relationships. All relationships need to be horizontalized and accepted. Now, this means that those images in your mind's eye which subordinate you need to be horizontalized. However, those relationships in which you feel superior also must be identified so you can neutralize them, normalize them, and in a sense, integrate them into the wholeness of yourself. In other words, when we identify ourselves as the whole, we actually suspend judgment on the world. We are the world, and we are in the world also. Okay, so sometimes getting used to the idea of non-reality requires us to reorganize our conceptions, and these conceptions help us to modulate to the meditative placement of attention. Let's start with the expulsion with the H sound. We'll inhale through the nose. Let's begin. Full expulsion. Get all the air out. Then inhale through the nose. Hold the breath. Oh. Breathing in. Breathing in. Fill up. Hold. And now let's come to our senses. Suspend editorials, conceptualizations, preferences. Be here now. Generally speaking, we begin by listening, radically accepting our experience completely, without question. Just to help, I'm hearing some of my neighbors speaking, and I have modulated to the meditative placement of attention, so I'm in radical acceptance. Letting go of preferences, and you can see how that works. I'm now sensing the air quality. And now my eyes are going to close as I imagine myself sitting here, and I'm going to invite the image of a person that may cause some anxiety. This could be someone that you actually admire, or someone that you prefer not to be in the company of. So I have identified my image. I hope you have yours. Select someone. And see yourself in a setting with the image of that person. You have the image of yourself and the image of that person. And relate to that person as you recall the dynamics of your relationship. And you're going to radically accept that person, radically accept yourself, radically accept the setting as if it is all one and the same. It is as it is. Right now in my mind's eye, I'm facing the person that I'm relating to. I am adjusting, normalizing, cultivating a divine indifference in the face of emotion and memory. Trust yourself. Trust the dream of life. Now we're going to completely let go of this imaging. Come to our senses once again. Listen closely. You can let your eyes open, radically accepting your experience completely. Again, radically accepting, suspending preferences. How wonderful. Let's debrief. So, we began with a deep breathing, which influences our affective state, our feelings. We then, there is a form of self-soothing, there is no doubt about it. The body is comforted by the oxygen, it's actually supported by the oxygen. Our ability to be calmer is supported by the oxygenation process, that is the blood brings oxygen to the cells, in other words, internal breathing. And we do that by deep breathing and sometimes holding our breath. Then we modulate it to the meditative placement of attention. The neighbor was talking. The world is forgiven, accepted. I let go. And we are then in the meditative placement of attention. Concerns, by the way, are naturally then moved into the superconscious, into the unconscious. We have chosen to not worry. And our affairs and our concerns are still being processed by an aspect of ourself that is much more inclusive. We then entered imaginal exposure, imagining the image of ourself with the image of someone that produces anxiety. We abide in that experience for a period of time, normalizing the relationship, if you will, and normalizing it, accepting. That's perhaps a better word. Accepting. This is not condoning. This is acceptance. And as we complete that adjustment, we then modulate back to the meditative placement of attention, confirming our true spiritual indifference, our true divine indifference. We let go of the image, returning to sensory awareness, letting go, being at one with ourself, and then return to ordinary consciousness and awareness. Well, this has been the healing workshop, and this has been a treatment session. Thank you for tuning in, and we will have one more video for treatment, and look forward to your participation in that coming video also. Thank you for tuning in. Stay well.